Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Islamic podcast. So I'm back. It's been a while since I last made a offline video.
Brother, it's been too long.
And I've been meaning to make a video on feminism for a while. This is probably my first video on feminism. So now before we get to anything, let's define what feminism actually is, right? Okay, so according to a philosophy paper that was published in, I believe it was published in Stanford Encyclopedia, and it was written by Noel McPhee, I believe. She's a professor of philosophy in Emory College, and she says in her paper the following. So, for example, a liberal approach of the kind already mentioned might define feminism rather simplistically here in terms of two claims. Normative, which is man and woman are entitled to equal rights with respect. And the other one is descriptive, which is that women are currently disadvantaged with respect to rights and respect compared to man, and in such respects and due to such and such condition. So basically, feminism in a nutshell is the philosophy where it is believed that man and woman should have equal opportunity in society. So this is one of their fundamental pillars of this ideology or philosophy or religion, should I say. And so this is one of their main arguments. And the other one is that they have this idea of patriarchy, which is that, womankind throughout history have been oppressed, and they have been oppressed by men, and man controls everything in society, or at least controlled everything in society. So the narrative is that they have to take their rights back and make things equal in society.
That is the most ridiculous statement I've ever heard.
Now this is the more liberal definition of what feminism is, but the Marxists have a different definition. But for this video, we're going to go with this one. I have a jacket on now because it's getting cold. So recently, India has raised the age of marriage to 21. So in case you guys don't know, before it was 18 and now it has been raised to 21. But one of the main reasons it has been increased to 21 is because of, feminism or liberalism. So basically they think that anything that kind of oppresses women or takes their freedom away from them is bad. And women should be free from all types of oppression or patriarchal domination. So they see marriage itself as kind of problematic, which is absurd. And because it completely goes against all kinds of religious tradition, it is completely un-Islamic, and it is completely against even Hinduism. Now, we know that in Islam, it is recommended that you get married early. And this is a sunnah actually, for both man and woman. But you can do that under this kind of feminist or liberal ruling. So in a way, this is a form of religious oppression. And feminism leads to this type of religious oppression because they don't care about religion. Feminism does not value religion. And this is something that is fundamental for us to understand. Both liberalism and feminism does not care about religion. They don't think it's important. They don't understand its values and principles. Now, interestingly enough, in Saudi Arabia, I believe, Sheikh bin Baz, he actually commented on this, and he also did not like this type of rulings where you make a specific age, and that's the only age where people can get married. I found it hilarious because even in America, they have many states where, which allows marriage of 12 to 13-year-olds with parental consent. So basically, India has become so feminist that they have literally outpaced America. Okay, so if you guys look at this chart, I have this website. It shows all the age of consent with parents and what age that is. So basically, in Massachusetts, the age of consent with parents is 12. In New Hampshire is 13. Hawaii is 15, Missouri 15, Alabama 16. So yeah, it's basically in America, you can get married at the age of 12 or 15. But in India, they're so feminist that you can't even do that. Now, recently, Asian Boss actually did a street interview where they asked a bunch of questions to a bunch of confused Indians. So I'm going to react to some of those clips and I'll give my reaction. I'll give my response to it and see what they think of like this law. For boys, it's 21. That's why it needs to be 21. I found this response kind of hilarious. So what? Like, I mean, if a boy jumps from a building and kills himself, you also jump from a building and kill yourself? Like, I mean, it's both bad. Killing yourself is bad, period. The same way, just because boys are allowed to get married late doesn't mean you should also be allowed to get married late.
Okay, stop copying me.
And the issue here is that the first issue here is that this violates religious freedom. It does not allow religious people to practice their tradition the way it should be practiced. So this basically puts a kind of like a damper on religious people and bullies religious people so that they cannot follow their own religion or tradition. And mainly because it is also un-Islamic, because there's a hadith where Prophet ﷺ said, narrated Abdullah, we were with Prophet ﷺ while we were young and had no wealth. So Allah's Messenger ﷺ said, O young people, whoever among you can marry should marry because it helps him lower his gaze and gird his modesty, i.e. his private parts from committing illegal sexual intercourse, etc. Whoever is not able to marry should fast, and fasting diminishes his sexual power. You can read about that. You can read about this in Sahih Bukhari 5066. But anyway, let's continue with like the reaction to the interview.
Worldwide, a lot of countries have it as 18, but in India the situation is a little different because in India child marriage is a big issue.
Suburban cities, nobody cares that much about it because nobody gets married too early. Like 21 is actually early, but in rural areas it is a huge issue because first we had child marriages in India, and to stop that the legal age was 18. But now
the funny thing is that these feminists, they will argue that women shouldn't get married this early. They're just child and all this. But they have no issue when these same teenagers, or which they dub as child, goes out there and has a boyfriend or has sex before marriage, because like the funny thing is, in my country, so we have like this legal age of marriage, like 18, right? And I remember that when I was in high school, I used to see that like young kids, like at the age of like, I don't know, 12, 11, they have like boyfriends, they're going out with like their boyfriends with like bikes and whatnot. And these are like kids. These are like 12 to 11-year-old kids, and they have like boyfriends, and they're just hanging out, doing whatever, and feminists are completely okay with it. They're completely fine with it. But if they get married, oh no, then they've done something really wrong. This is absolute hypocrisy. So yeah, they have no problem with if these young kids, teenagers, they have sex before marriage. But if you get married and then have sex, then it's an issue. So there's some issue with like marriage. They don't really care about like these issues of like sex. But the thing is, it's the same thing. And that's the hypocrisy here. Now, there's a research that was done by Rohit Sharma. It was published in NCBI, which says the following. And this is the interesting part, because you will see that in India, a lot of premarital sex happens. And a lot of this premarital sex, their age is very, very young. For example, this research, it says The title is More Than a Quarter of India's Youngsters Have Premarital Sex. A quarter to a third of India's young people indulge in premarital sex. A new study conducted by the National Institute of Health and Family Welfare and suppressed by India's Health Ministry has said. The study, coordinated by V.K. Tiwari, surveyed premarital sexuality and unmet contraceptive needs among school and college students, young working men and women, and young people aged from 15 to 24 years living in slums in Delhi and Lucknow. It includes that premarital sex varies from 17% among school children to 33% among young workers. In the typical North Indian population, premarital sex was more common in Lucknow than in Delhi. A majority of the 33,000 respondents who had premarital sex reported first having sex at age from 16 to 18. The average age for first sex estimated by the research was 17 to 74 years for boys and 18 for girls. 60% of respondents said that they had sex rarely or sometimes. 14% had sex frequently. About a third of the respondents were found lacking in awareness of unsafe sexual encounters. Now, another article, it was published in Mint, it's called Sex in India, says this. If your first sexual encounter happened after you crossed 30, you belong to a small minority in India. Among Indians who have sex, more than 90% had their first sexual encounter before reaching the age of 30. According to the data from National Family Health Survey, a large-scale nationally representative survey conducted in 2015 to 2016, men are most likely to have had their first sexual intercourse at the age of 20 to 24. The data shows for women, the peak age at first sex is lower at 15 to 19. Now, the funny thing is that according to the charts, Indian girls first starts having sex at the age of 10 to 19. This is funny because they're insulting Islam. A lot of this Hindu Bhaks are insulting Islam, and at their own country, girls starts having sex at the age of 10. This is hilarious. I'm not even saying that this is a bad thing, because when you're young and you've reached puberty, hormones start getting crazy and you want to have some kind of sexual experience. So it's actually normal, but what's not normal is having sex before marriage. Okay, this is why you have early marriages. Okay, this is how you stop this type of behavior. Because if they're having sex before marriage, there's a lot of issues that may rise from it. It can affect their school activities. It can cause early pregnancy and all other kinds of nonsense. So, and also the relationship may have end up in breakup, which can cause a lot of teenagers, which does cause a lot of teenagers to commit suicide. They can fall into depression. But things like this can't happen that easily in marriage. At least if it's done in a safe environment where the family is involved. Even if the girl is pregnant or whatever, you at least have the family members' approval so they don't feel depressed and sad or whatever. They have people to back them up. But that doesn't happen if there is no one to take care of them. So, yeah. Another research published in a Journal of Health Management says the following. An epidemiology of premarital sexual behavior in India exploring gender difference. This article analyzed the social context of increasing premarital sex in India in a gender perspective, which affects the overall context, patterns, and characteristics of premarital sexual behavior. The study has been conducted on data collected from 169,814 unmarried women and 14,000 unmarried men, a part of the Indian Demographic Health Survey (DHS) 2015-2016. Gender difference in premarital sex were pronounced, where unmarried men were 5 times more likely to have premarital sex. By the way, this is a huge indicator. This shows that unmarried men are more likely to have sex as compared to unmarried women, which is 3%. Cox regression portrays that both man and woman at young age more significantly more likely to initiate premarital sex. Now, this is the whole reason why I actually started doing this video. Muslim men, this is the report says, Muslim men were significantly more likely to have premarital sex at a younger age. This is why we have the tradition of getting people married early, okay, to avoid sin and disgusting behavior like this, okay. I mean, this is such absolute hypocrisy. I mean, do this men do not fear Allah? Like, you're just going out there like having sex. Like, are you serious? And this is a type of behavior that actually warrants a hudud punishment. Like, if you have adultery, that's punishable. You get whipped. You get whipped like 100 times or something. So this is like completely unacceptable, and yet this is happening. And with laws like this, where they cannot get married until they're 21, it's more likely to increase. This is not likely to decrease. And this is why this type of laws should be abandoned. And this is why feminism is ultimately against the interest of Muslim people. Not just Muslim people, Hindus as well. I mean, the Hindus are also doing this. Like, so. And also, like, if you get married, like, do you honestly think your wife would want a husband who like had like 20 different sexual partners, or like a wife who had like 20 different sexual partners, or boyfriends or whatever? Because that's what happens. You marry someone, and it ends up happening that they have like 20 different boyfriends. So regional variation in the prevalence of premarital sex are pronounced. Several findings reveal that unmarried women with higher education residing in urban areas and who belong to richest wealth quantities and exposed to regular mass media were more likely to have multiple sexual partners in premarital sex. Basically, this type of disgusting and unethical behavior is completely fine under liberalism, under like this kind of feminism, but it's not right if you get married. Okay, this is feminism in a nutshell. Another article on Hindustan Times says the following: according to the HTMR's youth survey, an unprecedented 61% believe that premarital sex is no longer a taboo. Only when it comes to marriage, 63% want their partners to be virgins. So this is hilarious. So like 61% believe that premarital sex is okay, but a lot of them also think that, but their partners have to be virgin. This is like the type of thing of like, having your cake and eat it too. Like, I mean, you can't do that. Like, you can't expect your wife to be like pure while you yourself are like a sexual deviant. It doesn't work like that. So yeah, and basically this is the absolute hypocrisy of feminism. So they made these laws where men can get married until like they're like 21, and so is for women. But it's fine if they're like have sexual partners, so like multiple sexual partners before marriage. If they have, and in many cases, some of these people are rich and educated, that's completely fine. Have as many sexual partners as you want, as many boyfriends as you want. That's all fine under feminism. You go queen, that's empowerment. Go queen.
Hey queen, girl, you have done it again. Constantly raising the bar for us all.
All this other kind of nonsense. But if you get married, then it's bad. So yeah, this is hypocrisy. Basically here the feminists are committing what is known as the fallacy of inconsistency. They are not consistent with their own argument. They are basically contradicting themselves. And so yeah, I mean, if they're not okay with young people having sex early, then they should make laws that prevent sex, period. But they don't do that. Because this is complete hypocrisy. Anyway, let's continue.
I definitely. Minimum should be 21. I mean, what I feel is that, like I've stated before, you should be a graduate. You should have completed your education, after which you get married. So 21 is definitely a very good age. But I mean, by that age, almost everyone has completed their education. So yeah, 21 is definitely a good minimum age to get married.
Okay, so 21 is not a good age to get married. There are a lot of issues with this. Okay, so just because you're allowed to get married at the age of 21 doesn't mean you will get married at the age of 21. The reality of the ground is that by the time you finish education, most woman or man doesn't want to get married at the time. They want to make sure that they have a stable job, and that can take like 10 years or 9 or 8 years until you're stable enough to want to get married, right? And by then, you're almost like 30. So basically, you don't get married until you're 30. But that is a huge issue, especially with like this modernist kind of feminist ideals, because if a woman tries to get pregnant and tries to have a child after 30s, then there is a lot of physical issues that they have to face and a lot of biological issues that they have to face. And this is just not healthy. Now, according to an article by University of Rochester Medical Center, wrote an article which talks about the problems and health risks that can happen when you get pregnant at the age of 30 or above 30. So basically, the article says the following. Risk of pregnancy over age 30. Many women wait until later in life to have children. In the US, birth rates for women in their 30s are at the highest levels in 4 decades, but an older mother may be at risk, at increased risk for things such as miscarriage, birth defects, twins, high blood pressure, gestational diabetes, and difficult labor. So basically, this is what the doctors are saying. They're saying that these things, if you try to get married after 30, it can cause a lot of troubles, a lot of difficulties for the woman. Also, another thing they said is that in many cases, a lot of this woman who tries to have children after 30 ends up having children with Down syndrome. Now, the risk of chromosome problems increase with the mother's age. The chance of having a child with Down syndrome increases over time. The risk is about 1 in 1,250 for a woman who conceives at age 25. Increases to about 1 in 100 for a woman who conceives at age 40. The risks may be higher. This is because many statistics only report live births. They don't note pregnancies with chromosomes problem that ended due to pregnancy loss. After having one child with Down syndrome, the chance of having another baby with Down syndrome is higher. After age 40, the recurrence risk for Down syndrome is based on the age of the mother at delivery. Most babies with Down syndrome are born to a woman younger than 35. This is because women under age 35 have more babies than women over 35. Now, another article in BBC says the following. It's one of nature's great inequalities, says Dagan Wells, professor of reproductive medicine at the University of Oxford. He is referring to the progressive and largely irreversible decline in female fertility from the age 35 to onward. Men also experience a decline in the baby-making ability as they get older, but this fall in fertility tends to start later and occur much more slowly than in women. The fertility rate for men tends to begin falling around the age of 40 to 45 years old. But when exactly does a woman's fertility start declining? And when does that decline result in the end of natural fertility? For millennia, women have been getting pregnant and bearing children in their teens and early 20s. Not much different from the Crapnine Neanderthals living in northern Croatia 3,000 years ago, whose fossilized remains suggest gave birth to their first child at 15 years of age. Prior to the 1960s, women in the US were having their first child on average at around the age of 21. For decades, scientists have associated the decline in female fertility with the age-related diseases in the number of eggs contained within women's ovaries. Each, if fertilized, has the potential to grow into a baby. Unlike men, whose reproductive organs produce millions of fresh sperm on a daily basis, women are born with all the eggs that they will ever possess. Moreover, this number steadily declines as a woman ages, from 1 million eggs at birth to 300,000 by puberty and 25,000 by the age of 37, and 1,000 by the age of 51. Of all this, however, just 300 to 400 eggs with baby-making potential, normally just one a month, will mature and eventually be released from a woman's ovaries. through ovulation across her entire life. For a reason not yet fully understood, the rest undergo a natural process of degradation and will never be ovulated. While egg counts decline as women age, so does the quality of the chromosomes and the DNA containing each egg. It would be wrong to focus only on female fertility. Some studies have shown that sperm quality also declined with age in men, starting in the 20s. Sperm mobility, the ability of it to swim around, has been found to decline by around 0.7% every year, while the sperm of older men carry more mutation in their DNA. Older fathers also pass on more mutations to their children than mothers do from their eggs. Mothers don't just need to contend with their fertility as they get older, but also greater risk during pregnancy, labor, and delivery. The first and second trimester evaluation of risk, a faster trial, a U.S. study funded by the U.S. National Institute of Child Health and Human Development, or NICHD, looked at the health records of over 36,000 women. They found mothers over 40 were 2 to 3 times more likely to experience health problems during pregnancy, including diabetes and high blood pressure. They were twice as likely to experience bleeding from their placentas, have a carcinous delivery, and to lose their baby later on in pregnancy. So the reason I'm showing you guys this is because it shows that, what feminism is promoting and the kind of laws it's putting into place is extremely harmful for women. This is putting women in a very difficult situation where they're literally forced to have children at a later age, even though it is harmful for them to do so. And yet the feminists have no issues with this. They have no issues with this. But if you ask these feminists why they're against, quote-unquote child marriage, they will say, it's because these women cannot get, if they get pregnant, they might have health issues, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. If you have a problem with that, then why don't we put a law which stops women in their 30s from ever getting pregnant? Why don't we make it illegal for older women to get married and get pregnant? Why don't we do that? Again, this is another example of fallacy of inconsistency. Also, the main problem with this type of appeal to kind of naturalistic arguments is that this is basically a form of naturalistic fallacy. So in case you guys don't know, the naturalistic fallacy is because the naturalistic occurs when you argue something like, just because something is a certain way in nature, therefore it ought to be that way. So basically it's like is-ought fallacy. Okay, so basically imagine you have a situation where, for example, just because it is the case that if girls tries to get pregnant at a very early age, that it might cause them some problems, does not necessarily mean that therefore we have to make laws that bans this type of practice. The same way, just because it is the case that women in their 30s can face problems in getting pregnant, does not mean that we then make it law and ban these women from getting married. Okay, just because something is a certain way does not mean that you can get your morals from it. Okay, because our morals or ethics doesn't work that way. One of the main examples is that in nature, for example, we see that rape is completely normal, and yet obviously based on that we cannot say that rape is permissible. Of course not. Basically they will appeal to, but this is not even true. I've known many family members who have married very early. I have family members that are married at the age of 12, and they have very healthy children, and she had many children. Actually, she has 5 or 6 children, and they're all healthy. She's very healthy, and she had a loving marriage, and nothing bad happened to her. And this is the case. This has been the case almost all throughout all of history. People have gotten married very early at a very early age, and this is happening in India right now. It's just happening before marriage, right? So it's not like they're not having sex or not getting pregnant. Even teen pregnancy is a thing in America too. So these things are happening anyway, and also, and from what the study shows is that as women grow older, the number of eggs that they have decrease over time. So the proper time to get married is around that time when they've hit puberty or right after puberty. Otherwise, the more older they get, the chances of them having a healthy pregnancy decreases over time. So it should be done early. But instead, the feminists are saying that no, it should be the opposite. But regardless, let's see what else they said.
I mean, if given a chance, I wouldn't make it to 25, people, they get married, but there is a lot of, divorce rates I have noticed, because they get married, in the heat of the moments. They feel it's all rosy, but when after they get married, they see that it's not as, rosy as it seems to be. And then they get the ground reality.
Okay, so this is absolutely false. So basically he's saying that if you get married early or get married after puberty, it's going to cause you to have a lot of divorce, which is absolutely false. Because there's one study, and it's a very major study, it's a big study. It was done in Our World in Data. They have this whole massive article where they gathered a lot of research data, and they compiled this kind of massive list of research papers and stuff like that. But they show that that marriage in general is becoming lower, meaning people are having sex even without marriage. It also shows how divorce rate have increased since the past. Now, one thing you have to understand is that in the past, people married early. Like people married at the age of 14 to 15. And yet they had very little divorce back then. But now, as times have increased, people's age of marriage have also increased. Now, right now in America, I think the average age of marriage is 30 or something. And yet the rate of divorce have increased. Now, if what this guy said is true, that, if we marry early, that's going to lead to divorce, then we would see the opposite of it. We would see that, people who married early in the past would get a lot of divorce, but that's not what happened. What happened is that they didn't get divorced. It's only later on, as we become more modern, in 2020 or stuff like that, we see more divorce happening. So it's absolutely false, this theory that, if you marry early, you're going to get divorced. That's not true. Sure, it can happen. Obviously, divorce happens like any normal marriage. But it's not true that just because you married early, divorce is going to happen. That's a non-sequitur fallacy. For example, this study would show that more divorce in the past and less divorce now. For example, this is what the study says. In the US, divorce rates have more than doubled from 2.2% to in 1000 in 1960 to over 5% in 1000. So it increased 3% in the 1980s. In the UK, Norway, and South Korea, divorce rates more than tripled. Since then, divorce rates declined in many countries. The trend vary substantially vary from country to country. Study also shows that the age of marriage for women has also increased from 27 to 30 or 23 to 33. So now that women are marrying late, they are facing more divorce, not less. So, this is a rubbish argument. Now, and that's the thing. That's the video. So, as you guys can see, what the sad thing is that a lot of Muslim scholars you see nowadays, such as Yasir Qadhi and others, who say that marriages should be done late, even though it's completely harmful for women. And as you guys saw in the video, what the feminists are arguing for are actually harmful for women. Late marriage can cause a lot of harm. It can possibly cause, feminism is possibly causing more divorce. It is destroying the family unit. It is causing trouble in terms of pregnancy for women. It is causing trouble in having just unhealthy relationship and premarital sexual behavior. It is possibly causing birth defects in women. It is possibly causing more divorce in women. It is creating enmity between man and woman. So feminism is just a toxic ideology. It's harmful for women. Actually, even though they claim the opposite, it's actually harmful to women. So stay away from feminism. But anyway, with this, I'll end this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys like the video, then like, share, and subscribe. And if you like my content and you want to support the channel, then please consider becoming a Patreon. The link will be in the description, inshallah. So you can click the link and become a Patreon if you want to support the channel. And yeah, with this I want to end this video. Thank you guys for watching. Inshallah, my next video will probably be on April. Again, thank you guys for watching. Jazakallah khair. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.